I've just licensed a very esoteric artist, should we call him? Owen Pallett, Final Fantasy on Domino, who was a piece of music on a Top Man viral film, which had beautifully produced 3 kind of little vignette films about these 3 lads in London and their different styles, but the branding is very in the back of those films. And so there's, there are ways and ways. So it's not necessarily like you were saying before. It's not necessarily the brand itself, but the way the brand is presenting itself.
Sure. But I think that's you'll be able to tell more. But certainly, one of my bands did a thing with an energy drink, and it was a 3-minute short film, online only. There was no branding in it at all. It just, I think at the start it said so and so presents this. And they were really happy to do it. It made everybody look good, and I think there's quite a lot of that going on with live as well, isn't it? I think a lot of people are putting money in without actually ramming it down people's throats, which is
absolutely.
Is good.
And I think as well, there's been a massive sea change in terms of consumers, not being put off by brands being associated with live events. If you look at something like V Festival, for example, when V Festival first came out, there was a real feeling that this was this horrible consumer, really commercial festival, with loads of sponsorship going on, all the kind of Virgin tie-in, and now it's kind of just accepted, and it's moved away from that. The bill's obviously expanded, the programming has obviously become a lot more developed, it's a lot more diverse now than it was previously, but I think people have just accepted it. But I mean, I think you're right, I think across kind of, not just in live...
Well, it depends if you've got credibility to lose in the first place, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, brands are increasingly aware of not being too overt in everything that they do. I mean, T-Mobile, for example, the last kind of 2 things that we've done with them, they have tried really, really hard to keep the branding out of kind of finished articles. So we did a lot of the consultancy work on a campaign which you wouldn't have seen in the UK, but Katy Perry's current song Fireworks, the music video for that was actually created by T-Mobile. And what happened there was that they wanted to take a huge artist and make a music video for them, utilising the fans of that artist and consumers and customers of T-Mobile. So the idea was they put out a call to arms by Katy saying she's making a new video, she wanted people to come together and come up with ideas for that, participate in some way.
If you've got a T-Mobile contract.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And the idea, and then basically what happened was they filmed that process, people came together, they came up with a concept for it, various people were chosen and flown to Prague to be in the actual video shoot itself. The commercial, which runs throughout Europe except the UK, is all about that process. The music video is a completely unbranded piece of content that is the universal music video that's used across the world for that song. There's not a mobile phone in the video. And they are becoming increasingly aware that they need to kind of take a step back from it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that Red Bull do are, a lot of things that Red Bull do are surprisingly unbranded as well. They get involved in quite a lot of under the radar stuff. They just sponsored a film showing of a film about a guy called Raymond Scott, who's a kind of early electronic music pioneer who built his own synths basically in the 50s and made advertising jingles, but he's a pretty underground artist, and it's a pretty underground film that his son's made, and they sponsored a showing of it and flew his son over from the States to talk at the opening. And just things like that. You kind of just get, if you've got an interesting idea and there's brands like that are around to fund that, I was really impressed with that.
I think Red Bull, I think the guys that own Red Bull kind of sort of see themselves as patrons as well, though. It's not quite, and although there's obviously, it's positive for their brand, I think there's a lot of stuff that they do where they're like, we don't really care, we just want to do something good for music that we like.
Yeah.
Well, either that or I've been completely...
No, I think
I
think you're completely right. I think more and more brands do want to see themselves as patrons, and not just in music, in terms of just general kind of lifestyle and passion points. So film, fashion, sports, lifestyle in general. And you're right. They absolutely do want to position themselves like that. You take something like Converse and the Rubber Studios that they created. And the track that came out of that with Julian Casablancas and Santa Gold. That was just about them saying, right, you know what? There's the studio. Go and create a piece of music that you love. You're completely free to do it. Yes, they will utilise that asset and offer that as a product. But it was about them just being as creative as they possibly could be.
Yeah. So what do you think? Because the media, it used to be, you did sync licensing in TV, and you sold your records and you got that income, and all the media is breaking down, and I see that particularly in the way that kind of branding can be subtle now. It doesn't have, you haven't paid enormous amounts of money for your TV airtime, and so you can be a bit more subtle with your branding, and it can be a shot at the end of a short film on a viral that's going to be only seen online, and you can present much more information on that online viral campaign. So in sync licensing, Sophie, where do you think the new deals are? I'm not sure whether any of you have ever attended any of the other panels that we've done about sync licensing and traditional forms of revenue, but basically TV advertising, as you saw up there, the revenues are steadily but surely going down. It's because less people are advertising and doing straight TV advertising, but certainly certainly in the last couple of years, I've certainly seen a huge divide between the amount of money that people will pay for major label artists and indie artists, but I've also seen some surprising increases in the amount of fees that you can get for digital and online campaigns. What kind of deals are coming in for those?
Well, I mean, that's it really. I mean, I've been in sync for about 7 years, and even, which isn't a great deal of time, but in that time, like you say, it was, when I came into it, TV advertising was pretty much what you'd spend 90% of your time focusing on, because it was the only side with money, essentially. Viral advertising barely existed, and there was no money at all. But obviously, going back to what you guys were talking about before, I think artists are becoming more and more aware of the value of sync now, so they're far more open to it. And because of it, obviously the new technologies that are coming about, obviously digital sales are going massively up, CD sales are coming down, people are focusing on that. So yeah, I mean, in terms of advertising, you'll see, I mean, mobile apps are becoming a huge thing. Like, no one even knew what they were a couple of months ago. And therefore, obviously, TV advertising is not losing its value, but the budgets aren't there.
So what's the deal for a mobile app?
Well, there you go. It's so new that no one really knows what to quote for it yet. But
I mean, what would the terms be? What would you be licensing? You'd be licensing a piece of music to an app on an iPhone.
Yeah, so therefore, because of the nature of it, pretty much a buyout worldwide. I mean, there's obviously not huge money in it, but it's the sort of market that's growing rapidly, while TV advertising and all the conventional syncs aren't as big as they used to be. It's all about how you can utilise the music and the band and the brands and all that. The 360 deals are becoming massive, so rather than just having a TV ad, they'll be including these apps and virals.
So 360 sync deals as well as...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because we've been hearing the 360 for the record deals for a long time, but a 360 sync deal would be...
Absolutely, just utilising every part of advertising that you can. So it will no longer be just a TV one-year deal. They'll include the cinema, radio, all the traditional ones, as well as now viral, which is, obviously it's a massive change in the market because, like I say, by the nature of it, you have to therefore include worldwide as soon as it's on the internet, because you can't track where it's going. And gaming as well is another one that's becoming more and more prevalent. Budgets are going up because they're becoming more creative. They're competing against TV trailers, film trailers, and obviously the market is just like, what was the statistic?
Yeah, tell us these stunning statistics.
Call of Duty Black Ops sold 6.5 million copies in its first day.
6.5 million copies in a day. Just repeating that for anybody who didn't quite get that. And what was the income from that?
$356 million they made on the first day. So they were equating it to kind of opening weekends of blockbuster films, and it beat pretty much everything that was released, every major kind of Hollywood blockbuster